A little late this evening. We had a work session. We probably need to start scheduling work sessions to end 15 minutes before council, because running them right up to council isn't working out too well. I mean, only in the sense of we're consistently starting this meeting late after we have work sessions. And you know what they say about a good meeting. It starts on time and it ends on time. And since we don't have an end time, an official end time, all we can do is start on time. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the September 24th, 2024 regular council business meeting of the McMinnville City Council. I would like to call the meeting to order at 7:08 p.m. and ask David Leitenberg, our city attorney, to do a roll call.
Councilor Geary.
Good evening.
Councilor Menke.
Here.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Present and got my video working.
Councilor Peralta.
Here.
Councilor Payne.
Present.
Council President Garvin.
Here.
Mayor Drabkin.
Here. That's all of us. Excellent. I see that we have a number of visitors here tonight, including some recent committee members, and so if it's not too much of an imposition, would those that are serving in as volunteers with the city of McMinnville be willing to stand, if able, and help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Anybody that's a volunteer with the city of McMinnville, please stand, if able.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are starting this evening with a proclamation. This is a proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas the city of McMinnville recognizes Indigenous People Day, and whereas the city wishes to honor the fact that the community of McMinnville is built upon the traditional homelands of the Yamal Band of the Kalapuya peoples, and affirms the legal right of the 9 federally recognized tribal nations in the state of Oregon and all Indigenous peoples everywhere. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Peoples in the Americas, and whereas the United States endorsed the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People on December 16, 2010, and the declaration recognizes that Indigenous peoples have suffered and continue to suffer from historic injustices as a result of their colonization and dispossession of their lands, territories, and resources. And whereas the city recognizes the many contributions made to our community through Indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, spirituality, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the cultural contribution that shaped the character of McMinnville. And whereas the city of McMinnville has a responsibility to oppose the systematic racism towards Indigenous peoples in the United States, which perpetuates high rates of poverty and income inequality, exacerbates disproportionate health, education, and social stability, and whereas the city of McMinnville shall continue its efforts to promote the prosperity and well-being of any Native American, Alaska Native, and Indigenous community, and that Indigenous Peoples Day shall be used to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous people on this land, to celebrate the thriving culture and value that Indigenous people add to our city. And whereas the city of McMinnville encourages all businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day, and now therefore I, Remy Drabkin, Mayor of the city of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim Monday, October 9th, 2024 as Indigenous Peoples Day, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand this 24th day of September in the year 2024. We'll now go to comments from community members. Any interested audience member is invited to provide comment. Any comment provided that requires some type of follow-up will be assigned to a staff member. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing today or at some future dates. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person and for a total of 30 minutes. If you're on Zoom and you wish to speak, please use the raise hand feature. And if you're having trouble with that, you can also use the chat feature. When your turn is up, we will announce your name and unmute your mic. This evening, you can send a chat directly to Scott Burke. And I would remind everybody that when they're providing public comment to announce their name and the city in which they reside for the record. Has anyone signed up for, I don't even know who to ask. Has anyone signed up for public comment this evening?
Mayor, we have two tonight. We have Tamsin Cranmer in the room, and then Mark Prine on Zoom.
All right, thank you very much. Tamsin, welcome back. If anybody else wants to provide public comment tonight as well, please grab a comment card and start filling that out. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tamsin Cranmer. I live here in McMinnville. So I've been coming up, I've said a lot of things about things, but I'm here to ask, we need action, we need things done. We don't have Encompass out there anymore for the next 5 weeks. There's no place. Everybody keeps getting cited for camping, but where are they supposed to be? There's no shelters. The other one in Newburgh got shut down. There's got to be something we can do. You know, last time I was here, somebody was going to come back, or was going to get back to us with an update on the navigation center. I'm getting all worked up because I'm getting worried about people, and we don't have our backup plan right now. We don't have our shield. Encompass isn't out there to help right now. And that's a temporary situation, but it's right here at the beginning of when it's gonna be winter, and everybody's starting to lose hope, and that's not what we want. We need to do something, please. You guys all by now know how to get a hold of me. Just get in touch with me. I'll do anything I can, because this is something that both sides, we need to come together and work together. And that's really what I want to say, is we need a place to be, and we need to work together in this. Please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we have Mark Prine here to testify as well, I believe on Zoom. And then Mr. Burke, if you could use the timer as well for public testimony. And wonderful. Thank you. And I'll just remind you to state your name and the city in which you reside for the record.
Yeah, hi, thank you for your time. My name is Mark Prine. I reside in the city of Yamhill. I have some residential I'm wondering if okay, so my question is I have a piece of property on Clay Street. I'm not sure if you have time to pull up a map, but it is also adjacent. The other side of it is on Irvine Street. I've been working with Heather for a few years to try and get this split. So partitioned, I should say, so that I can have another lot to build more housing. I've spoken with my engineer, and he's worked with the city quite a bit, and his response was this. If I just could read it, it'll probably take me about 30 seconds. He said, I have looked over MP 1-24, and I'm confused by the conditions of approval. I don't understand why you weren't allowed to construct at most an alley. The alley would have a single-family home, a duplex, and a pump station utilizing it. Per the McMinnville Street section, an alley allows a maximum average daily traffic count of 500 trips per day. The usage for this alley will never be higher than 30 average trips per day. Everything south of your station, your neighbors street parcel is a Cozine Creek floodplain for FEMA attachments and is undevelopable. The alley would end at the pump station as it currently does, which is in the floodplain. So I'm trying to understand, I guess what I'm asking is, if I don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars to have a city engineer come up with a plan or a request. Is the city council open to a request for a variance in this location? I've worked with Heather. She tried her best to work within the confines of what the code is. And right now with the codes, we're looking at over what I'm getting estimates for over $100,000 in street improvements for what it has less traffic than an alleyway. And that is too financially burdensome for the project. And so I guess I'm asking the city council if they're open to a variance or whatever the terminology is, if I am to get this work done and present it to you guys as a potential restructuring or relabeling of it to an alleyway, or like, I'm sorry, I don't know the terminology, but that's, I hope you get what I'm trying to say.
Thank you very much. The public comment, it doesn't provide a format where you would get a yes or no answer from us at this time. What we do is hear your testimony, gives us the ability to follow up internally and make sure that your concerns are getting addressed.
Okay, when would I expect to hear from you?
Hold on 1 second, if you don't mind. Council President, want to ask a question of staff?
Heather, is this a land use matter, or is this just administrative that council actually has purview over?
No, this is a land use matter. So, and staff has met with Mark on several occasions regarding the code and the conditions of approval and the pathways available to him to develop that property.
So from a council perspective, it would be an application to your office and then planning commission, and then appealed. If he doesn't like the outcome of planning commission, it would be appealed to here.
Yeah,
Then council would weigh in.
A land use decision has been issued. There was an appeal period. It was not appealed. And so at this point, that appeal process is no longer an opportunity.
So we'd have to do a whole new application?
There's other ways to approach this property, and we've had those discussions with him and his team as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment today. We will have further internal conversation, and I can't tell you an exact date that you're going to hear from the city at this time, but I do appreciate you coming and providing public comment this evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to provide public comment to the council this evening? Mr. Leitenberg?
Mayor, I'd like to note that you have received an email from Mark Davis that will be entered into the record and will be part of the amended packet.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom, the phone, or in the gallery that would like to provide public comment this evening? Okay. We're now going to move into a quarterly update from the general manager at Water and Light, Mr. John Dietz. As a reminder to council and the public, within the last couple of years, the council and the Water and Light Commission have come together and put together a collaborative plan. Part of that plan is to have quarterly updates from the lead administrators of both the city and the Water and Light to report to the other governing body to make sure we're staying in step with everything that's happening in either organization. And so tonight is a continuation of that. We've also been doing, are you doing a general update tonight, or are you digging in on rates? Okay, wonderful. So tonight is kind of the start of a new format of how we'll be doing this, still quarterly, of course, but we're moving from doing kind of generalized city updates to using this as an opportunity to dig into a subject or a project or something that's being, that's in front of either governing body that's going to need work. So thank you very much for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's maybe go to the next slide. So, rates. Commission just adopted new electric rates starting October 1, 2024. The rate increase was 2.75%. And they've also adopted a water rate increase last month, which will also go into effect October 1 of 5%. Those rates are significantly lower than, for example, on the electric side, our PGE rate increases that have been going on for the last couple of years. I know PGE is going back to the PUC for a rate increase on January 1, 2025, and they just came out with a 6.3% rate increase on top of the 12 and the 18% they had the previous year. So if you go to the next slides, that one's not very good, but the orange bar at the bottom is water and light, and that is our water rates. Or excuse me, that's our electric rates. So just a little FYI on electric rates. Currently, the national average in 2023 was 16 cents per kilowatt hour. California average is 30 cents per kilowatt hour. And water and lights rate is 6 cents per kilowatt hour. Just a little perspective on rates. Go to the next slide. Water rates. You can see we're also towards the bottom. We currently are, I think the only one that is below us in the local area is Kaiser. And everyone else is significantly above us. If you go to the next slide, Scott. So that was some of the good news. Now the not so good news. So we are definitely seeing pressure on rates from a number of areas. One is material costs continue to escalate. We were just looking at our 36-inch transmission main that we're completed engineering on phases 3 and 4. The price the engineer gave us is a little over $1,900 a foot to install that. So if you looked at the remaining 40,000 feet, we're looking at over $70 million to replace the remaining of that pipe. Going from a 16 currently to a 36, which would give us 100% capacity for the watershed. The watershed current capacity is 30 million gallons a day. Currently with the pipe we have, we're looking at about 15 million gallons. So that would double our capacity. The other problem is, if you go to the next slide, Scott, our BPA rates. So as a preference customer of the Bonneville Power Administration, we actually have preference rights to the output of the federal hydro system, which includes 31 projects plus Columbia Generating out at Hanford, which is a nuclear plant. BPA is proposing, we have not seen the final or the draft record of decision yet, but we're looking at somewhere between 8 and 9% on the power side and upwards of up to 32% on the transmission side for the next rate period, which starts October 1, 2025. And so if you add that to the current rates, we're looking about somewhere between $3 and $4 million of increased cost just in our power cost and our transmission costs from Bonneville. And if you look at there, our power costs, our transmission costs are about 65% of our total electric costs. Go to the next slide, Scott. I think that, yeah. So what Bonneville is proposing is to increase capital spending and essentially double capital spending in both the power side, which is the essentially the generating units at the hydro projects. So basically all the generators, over time they go through and rehab all of those generators. So they're looking at doubling the spending on those rehabs and then additionally more than doubling the transmission construction capital costs over the next rate period. So that would be over the next 3 years until our current contract expires in 2028. We're pushing back on them because we believe that they cannot execute that in the first year of the rate period. We think that's not realistic, and so we have been pushing back on them to look at reducing that rate and
basically scaling that in over the 3-year rate period to reduce the initial cost. Because what they're looking at doing is collecting 100% of those rate increases in year 1. And this is a 3-year rate period. Go to the next slide, Scott. Yeah, so basically, organizations like Public Power Council, we're a member of Public Power Council, we're a member of the Northwest Requirements Utilities. These are organizations that essentially advocate for Bonneville customers. And as a Bonneville customer, we are looking at how we can get those costs to more of a reasonable number. Next slide, Scott. And so what we have here is hopefully we will see in November, we're going to see the draft, what they call the ROD, Record of Decision, from Bonneville. And then we will have opportunity to comment. We've already been commenting with Bonneville on that. When they produce that draft, then we'll go into ex parte. We won't be able to talk to the BPA staff at that time about those, but we'll have to do it through comment period. So then the final record of decision will come out in July, and the new rates will be effective October 1 of 2025. Next slide. So maybe some other news. We did have a little incident at our facility back a couple months ago. We've been there for 35 years and never had an incident like this. Fortunately, no one was hurt. And so this will now be incorporated into our future design of our facility, and we'll be looking at some ways to mitigate this issue. And next slide, Scott. So one of the projects that we are actually probably 75% complete with now is replacement of what we call our raw water line. So this is the line that comes from the bottom of the Haskins Reservoir to the treatment plant. That line was installed in the 1970s. An old steel line. It has not had any leaks yet, but we were trying to make sure that we don't have those issues because it has varying different sizes of pipe in it. And so we're using an HDPE product, so a high density polyethylene pipe, to replace that line. And that hopefully will be complete by the end of the year. Next slide. And then as most of the council knows, that we were on an infrastructure tour a weeks ago, and I think next slide. And any questions?
Council President?
Yeah, back to the power compression and just kind of what we've seen in surrounding communities with PGE. Is there any projections on what that would be for McMinnville Water and Light ratepayers as far as an annual increase to cover that delta that you talked about?
Not yet, because we don't know what the final number is, and plus then we'll add in other costs of infrastructure, which we have a long-range plan, but I don't know when certain things will hit, but we'll have to look at new estimates, because we'll go out, once we get the BPA rates and our rate consultant, we're going to go through a cost of service next year. We'll go through and we'll look at what the cost of materials and infrastructure costs are doing to see what we're going to have to add to rates to cover those costs. So I suspect if we can't get the Bonneville rate down, it could be upwards of 10%.
Okay, but not 18 or 20 like
No,
G's talking?
No, and I think the commission has been very clear. They want to keep rate increases somewhere 5% or less. So they may mitigate that in some way, which I don't know what that will look like yet. But they may spread that rate increase over the rate period.
Oh, I just wanted to put on the record that this guy's not falling at Mount Water and Light.
How are you going to mitigate it?
Well, we have cash. So we could use some of that potentially to offset those rate increases until we get that up to, our cost of service. So that's one strategy we could use.
So you'd like to phase it in over a longer period of time, is that what you're saying?
Well, we could phase it in over the 3-year rate period, because Bonneville will start the rate period in October 1, 2025, and end September 30th, 2028. Then the new contract will start October 1, 2028. So the commission could decide we're gonna mitigate those costs. There's a number, we could do less infrastructure work, but I have concerns about that, because that just means you're gonna pay that down the road someplace.
Councilor Peralta?
Thank you. Is there a comment period related to the Bonneville increase that the city can?
Yes, we'll be, our trade organizations plus us will probably be commenting on that during that draft. When that draft rod comes out, that's when the comment period will start.
Is it worth it for local governments or regional governments to comment?
It doesn't hurt, the more is better. And so if there is something that you'd like to comment on, yes, I would encourage you to comment.
I mean, the one that really rings true to me is phasing in the cost increases over a 3-year period. And if it's helpful to have either the city or the regional council of governments or organizations like that to weigh into that effect, I think that's something we should do.
That would be good, because they always ask for our comments, and so, yeah, I will keep that in mind when we get to that point. We'll know what the rate, potentially what the rate increase is going to be in November sometime.
And so the comment period would be sometime after November?
Yeah.
Okay.
Counselor, that makes me wonder, I wonder if you could also get letters of support from League of Oregon Cities. I know that they can only send support on things that benefit all their members, which is all cities, and not all cities get BPA power, but I would think that all cities that don't have their own utility, I would think that ultimately all cities would. I just wonder if LOC might be able to weigh in as well.
Yeah, there are 12 municipals in the state of Oregon, so we're one of 12. So there would be 12 cities that could.
Do the BPA rate increases also affect the for-profit ratepayers like PGE or Pacific Power?
No. It is a different structure because we are preference, we actually have priority to the power. So if there's not enough power, Bonneville then will not be selling secondary on what they call the net secondary revenue. Typically, the way that works is they sell to the municipals first. If they estimate they're going to have excess, then they will put that on the market. Those dollars that come from that excess, that revenue that comes from that excess, actually goes back to us as what they call a net secondary credit. So that helps to offset our rates, which is that's why we're preference.
Right.
Is because we actually get that net secondary revenue back as a rate credit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions for Mr. Dietz? Thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate it.
All right.
Of course,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome to stay for the whole meeting if you like.
I think we have a couple next week.
Yeah, I'll be there. We'll now move into a public hearing. The process for the hearing being heard this evening, if you'd like to provide testimony, please be sure to state your first and last name and your address for the record. Each person testifying will also be allotted 3 minutes for their testimony. I'm first going to ask if any counselor needs to declare a potential conflict of interest or recuse themselves regarding this resolution. Okay, I would ask Jeff Hunsaker, our Public Works Director, to give a presentation on the topic, please.
Sorry, I had a Zoom quit on me unexpectedly. I don't even know what that means. All right. Okay. So yes, I have a short presentation this evening. This one's a little bit of a unique situation, so I wanted to walk through it.
Okay, are we still Zooming, though? I just want to make sure we're meeting all our requirements. Oh. Okay, thanks.
Now the screen share's gone away. I think it quit and kicked me out. My apologies. Pull it back up.
I was hoping we were gonna get out of here early this evening. I'm the one slowing us down.
Why would you say that out loud?
Jinxed it.
Kidding.
Crashed again, Scott. Okay. Maybe I just won't do the slideshow portion of it. Just do it this way. It's quitting, maybe I'll just do it this way. Sorry about that. All right.
No worries.
Okay. So like I said, this is a little bit of a unique one, so have a short presentation for you this evening. No idea why it keeps quitting on me. Still sharing. Okay, well, it's showing up. So to orient us, we're talking about Meadows Drive. This is J. Pearson Park. The property to the east of it is the property that we're talking about that's in development. And the roadway in question is Meadows, which is down the dead center of this. And it's, you can see there's a gap in there. So when the city purchased the J. Pearson Park property, we entered into a contract that obligates us to pay for half-street improvements of both Yawn Ranch Drive and Meadows Drive. Yawn Ranch, we did that in 2019 when the development happened over on that side. Now the developer, Allen Root and Inc.'s come in for development of the property to the east. And what that presents us is a construction opportunity. So the developer, per the agreement, shall submit a cost estimate to the city for review. And if that cost is agreeable, the city can enter in an agreement with the developer to construct the city's share of the street. Now, since we're using city funds for this and it's on city property, this project's essentially a public improvement contract, so it's subject to competitive bidding rules per the ORS. But also per the ORS, the local contract review board, in this case, the city council, exempt the contract from competitive bidding if it proves two findings. The first is the exemption is unlikely to encourage favoritism or substantially diminish competition. And the second is the exemption will likely result in substantial cost savings and other benefits to the city. So for the first one, we have some items for consideration, but that competition is not substantially diminished. The work is going to be required to meet APWA standards, just as if the city was constructing it. The city does have the opportunity to review the cost estimate, and if we don't find it agreeable, we can move forward with another route. This format may increase competition by appealing to contractors that do not normally bid on government contracts. The developer would go through their normal solicitation process for hiring a contractor to build the project. And the developer is required to still pay prevailing wages for the city's portion of the project. Or substantial benefits and savings, this allows the developer to manage and construct the project, which is going to save the city time and resources. The developer will be able to maximize efficiencies by constructing this as a single project. A side benefit to that is the community will only have to experience one project going on at a time, not a second project coming back later. There are some additional considerations per the ORS that have been included as an attachment to the resolution that's up for approval tonight. So essentially, the council has three options. The first is to adopt the resolution and its findings, which exempts Meadows Drive from those public bidding requirements, and this is staff's recommendation. Council could also not approve and require Allen Root and Inc., the developer, to go through the full public bidding requirements. These are the same requirements the city has to go through when they're bidding public projects. Or the council could not adopt the findings of the resolution and direct the staff to go out for public bid and contracting. We'd have to develop the engineering plans and some bidding documents and go through a whole management of the construction projects that way. That was all the comments I had for this.
Great, thank you. Does any counselor have questions at this time?
May I?
Yeah, Counselor Payne, thank you.
Do you know what the timeline is for the proposed subdivision development?
Their plans have already been submitted. They're starting work out there right now for some of the other work, and I expect it to roll through 2025 for the infrastructure improvements.
And if the bid requirement for the city is waived, essentially, how does that impact the timing of the development of the subdivision?
It would not impact the timing of the development of the subdivision. They'd be able to just roll this right into the work already that they've put together in their plans.
And if the formal bid process was honored, how long does that add to the development?
Well, our normal bid process, going through all the advertisements and notification, it's at least 2 to 3 months to go through that process.
Could you use your microphone, Counselor?
Plus, you said we'd have to create the drawings?
If the city was going to build it, then it'd be a much longer process. We'd have to go through at least a year's worth of work probably to put all that together, with considering current staff resources and timing. Yeah, so.
Thank you. Additional questions?
Just to clarify, so if we went through this a city process, it would be at least a year out before this road would be done or started. And if we waive that process, you think they could potentially be started on it in the next 3 months?
So if we adopt the resolution and waive the competitive bidding process, they will just wrap that into the work when they start building their half of the roadway here. So it shouldn't make any change. If we put them through the whole competitive bidding process, when we normally do, it's about a 3-month process. We probably have to help them out to go through that whole process because there's a lot of steps that we have to go through when we do that. If the city was going to do it, the soonest we can get it built is a year from now, but we also might consider doing it even later than that because you usually don't want 2 contractors working on the same site. So we might choose to wait until they're completely done with their infrastructure work and then try to make sure we get in there and do our half of the roadway improvements before homes start going up and people start living there.
Okay, thank you. And how many homes are being built on the subdivision?
18.
18 lots.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Counselor Gary?
In either path, is the design of the street already set?
Yes, the design of the street's already set. The developer did the design for the whole thing because they were contractually obligated to give us that cost estimate and put that together. So they've done the design, but we'd have to kind of redo it to create our own documents.
We would have to redo it to create our own bid documents.
Right.
So their design included our portion along the abutting J. Pearson Park's portion of Meadows.
Correct.
And is it to the same accessibility standards as the other side?
Yes, it's the exact same standards. They have to follow our normal street section for the design, so both sides would be the same.
The portion along J. Pearson on Meadows is designed in either process to mirror the portion along J. Pearson Park on Yon Ranch.
Correct.
Okay. With those accessibility markers achieved. I believe that section of sidewalk is unique to other sections of sidewalk.
Oh, for the accessibility to the playground?
Correct.
Oh, I do not think this roadway section would meet that accessibility requirement then. I'm not sure exactly what the difference was. Do you recall? there was done differently on that other sidewalk. I'm not sure, that area's pretty flat. I'm not sure what accessibility.
I mean, it's curbless, I believe. And I usually bike up and come along the path, but I believe that section along J. Pearson on Yon Ranch is curbless.
Okay, this would be a curbed section then.
Would it have bump outs with the handicap ramps? Or basically the easier access for handicapped people?
I mean, it would have the same access that a regular sidewalk would have, so they'd have the ramps.
Yeah, basically what we
winds.
see.
So the sidewalk itself would be ADA accessible,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be a curbless situation, because that, we wouldn't have to replicate that, because that's provided on the Yon Ranch section if it is curbless.
More is better.
Understood.
Additional questions?
Just trying to decide if I'm crazy, but I think I remember it's curbless along there, along the Yon Ranch.
Google Street View is coming in.
Well, it won't, I can't drop my little guy on Yon Ranch right there.
Yeah, I guess the car never made it.
Oh, wow. All right. Do we have anyone signed up for public testimony this evening?
We do not have anyone signed up in advance.
Okay, is there anyone in the gallery, is there anyone in the Civic Center or on Zoom or on the phone that would like to provide testimony this evening? If you're on Zoom, please either raise your hand or send a chat directly to Scott Burke, our IT director. Okay. Public testimony is now concluded for the evening. Would you like to add anything, Mr. Hunsaker?
Nope, that is all.
Okay. The public hearing is now closed. We'll go to reports from counselors on committee and board assignments. Counselor Gary, may we start with you?
I may be wrong. I think there should be a curbless section for pulling in, delivering people. I'm working my way through some photos here.
We're checking the areas.
I don't think it's entirely curbless. I think there's a pull-in portion for accessibility at the front where the curb is mitigated to the street.
There's a lot of planter strip there, Councilor Geary.
There's a lot of planter strip. Okay.
Council report. Councilor
Yes.
Gary, if you don't mind.
I don't. DEIAC, you heard plenty from us tonight from my update. We'll continue work on that document in the coming, and you heard a tease of our next effort at the October 11th, I think it is, with the consultant come back to staff. Affordable housing, tomorrow morning to 10 to something, and the main topic is housing production strategy. MURAC, in between meetings, nothing scheduled at the moment. Third Street Improvement had a good long meeting where we were given multiple design choices and sort of subgroups where there was places to give input. We were given a multitude of pictures and options and a matrix of decisions that we provided feedback on, to things such as curbless, bulb outs, planting areas, flexibility for how it will look at all times and how it will look and behave during events, mid-block crossings and sort of bollard or spatial definitions in a more curbless environment to keep multimodal transit safe. So that was that, and that's my update.
Thank you. Councilor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. One moment, please. Okay. So MCM 11 had a board meeting last week. They discussed ongoing and future efforts at increasing revenue outside of the franchise fee. They are looking forward to coming back to council to discuss the reallocation of the franchise fee. The other methods that they've been looking at include seeking other cities to support the franchise, memberships that allow businesses, and this one they're doing right now, memberships that allow businesses and nonprofits to take advantage of low-cost video instruction classes. And they're considering sponsorships for currently unsponsored MCM 11 coverage, such as annual events like the air show or regular events like council meetings and other activities that MCM 11 covers. Council of Governments Legislative Committee met last week. We had a presentation from the League of Oregon Cities. The League is currently doing a survey of cities to ask about priorities, so I believe, Mayor, you probably should have received something from them. If not, Jeff Towery likely did. Jim McCauley from LOC came to discuss the top 5 priorities for LOC in addition to the priorities that it's currently surveying. Revenue sharing was at the top of the list. Recreation immunity, a permanent fix for recreation immunity. This relates to a lawsuit in which a person was injured in a city park and sued under that, sued the city and won under the court ruling. So the legislature adopted a temporary fix to reduce liability for cities, and now they're looking at a permanent city if somebody falls at a park. They are looking to do work on the transportation package. Candidly, I have some concerns about the transportation package because most of the money appears to be intended for 2 projects in the Portland area, leaving less money than we'd like for rural road repair and for key projects in rural communities like the Newburgh-Dundee bypass. They're seeking full funding and alignment with legislative priorities for housing infrastructure. This would be similar to the $2 million that the city of McMinnville got through Representative Elmer and the mayor's work to get housing infrastructure put into play, or infrastructure put in place for shovel-ready housing projects. And I am really proud of this one. Our council may remember that in 2019, I had introduced, along with retired Tillamook County Commissioner Bill Bartline and former State Senator Betsy Johnson, legislation to encourage transient lodging tax flexibility, so to allow cities to spend a bigger share of the transient lodging tax on local government uses like housing rather than simply marketing. And that is now, after 5 years, a priority for LOC. So it looks like that may have legs in the upcoming session, and I'm pretty excited about that. That's my report. Oh, I also had a question, whether this is for staff or Councilor Menke. What's the status of the navigation center? Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Payne?
Thank you. Landscape Review has a special meeting tomorrow to review one landscape plan for an industrial property on Rivergate. That's at noon. And then the September Local Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting for September is postponed until October 23rd. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Menke?
Well, Councilor Gary's done all my additional work, so I'll devote myself briefly to YCAP. In regard to the Navigation Center, there is a writ of temporary occupancy. There are 4 people in there because they still are lacking certain safety guidelines and things like that that should come with the completion of the building. But there are 4 people working on setting things up and bringing people in and establishing offices. So that's where we're at this point in time. The estimate is that once the building is complete, it will be 60 days from that time before it actually opens.
And I would love to have our community development director also respond.
Yeah, I think Heather should respond, but since I am talking briefly, I would like to, I have a couple other things for YCAP, but I would prefer to present them at the next council meeting. So that's all I've got.
Okay, and then do you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to follow up, so we actually did the final punch list today in the facility. YCAP has been in there since they got their temporary certificate of occupancy, so that 60 days that Councilor Menke is referencing is sort of overlapping this other time frame of just trying to get through the final punch list at the facility. There were a couple of construction delays due to material orders on long lead times and some other issues that we discovered there as well. But we are at the very end of it in terms of the construction, knock on wood. I'm hoping we can be done by either this Friday or next Wednesday for the project. And then YCAP has been actively in there, furnishing the place, putting supplies in there, doing safety training sometime in the next 2 days, I believe, Councilor Menke as well. And so they're getting their staff trained up and occupying the space to open it as soon as we can. It was the first time I've been in there since it's been completed, and I'll say it's a beautiful project. And so we hope to have a ribbon cutting and offer tours of the facility, but obviously our goal is to get it open as soon as possible as well.
Councilor Peralta?
Thank you. Director Richards, so if it is completed by this Friday, then it's another 60 days before full use is, I think, what?
No, YCAP's been doing, so they need 60, the city has been responsible for the construction of the project. YCAP's responsible for the operations of the project. They needed 60 days to get their operational pieces in place, and they also had some additional work that they wanted to do in there. That's been overlapping the last couple of weeks, and I don't know how many weeks exactly it's been overlapping as we got to sort of this final punch list. So once we got the temporary C of O issued, it was safe for people to occupy the building, and so that's when YCAP entered the building and started doing their work as well. Right now, we are coordinating. We have a couple of subs on the site too. They have control of the site, and we're coordinating as we try to get everything done.
Thank you. Councilor Chenoweth, are you unable to mute now? Unmute, rather?
Yeah, muting wasn't a problem for me. Thank you, Mayor. It was, my video was zoomed in, so you only saw my right eye, which seemed a little creepy. So anyways, I think I don't have anything to report. I do believe I reported on EVLC the last time that I spoke, so I think I have nothing to report.
Thank you so much. Council President?
YCOM and Airport Commission haven't met since our last meeting. I had a scheduling conflict with Visit McMinnville's meeting. I don't know if Jenny attended or if there's anything urgent pressing. We do have another board member here that might share something, but I don't have anything to report. Thank you.
Thank you. The McMinnville City Council and the McMinnville Water and Light Commission were able to go on a joint infrastructure tour a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to thank the county for providing a bus to tour us around, to go to the pump house, a wastewater treatment plant, where we all photographed a beautiful pink sky off a settling pond, and it was the most gorgeous sewage I've ever seen, amongst other highlights. I also, through my business, was able to host the McMinnville Short Film Festival and became hyper aware of the McMinnville Short Film Festival dates, which will be here, of course, in McMinnville, coming up in early February. And so just wanted to alert folks that that is currently available. Tickets to the film festival are currently available. We also, as a city, hosted the International Women's Forum this past weekend. I was lucky enough to be able to provide the welcome to a group of about 80 executive women from all over the Pacific Northwest that are members of this International Women's Forum. We had a little economic analysis, and it is estimated that they would spend collectively approximately $100,000 in McMinnville and Yamhill County between lodging, their planned meals, event spaces, and projected shopping over the weekend time that they were here. So wanted to note that. On the Northwest Rubber site, we have narrowed the 8 RFQs to 4 RFQs, and those who have submitted projects have been contacted to schedule interviews. And back over at Water and Light, we are still working through the land agreement on the Miller property for the future Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Center. We're now discussing in open meeting some of the things. So the two objectives that we discussed last week that we're trying to resolve, or that Mr. Leitenberg and Mr. Justice will be trying to find a pathway towards, is one, to fulfill the intent of the people of McMinnville in their Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, which specifically called out river access. And the other thing that we're trying to address in these continued negotiations is future potential wetland mitigation needs for the Water and Light Commission. That is my update, and we will go to department heads now. Mr. Leitenberg, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing from the legal department tonight.
Thank you. And Jenny Berg, Library Director.
So yes, I did attend the Visit McMinnville meeting, and it was a little bit longer meeting than usual because they did a great job of some onboarding of new board members. There was a little bit of housekeeping and then some history of the organization, which was very useful. Courtney Cunningham has been acting as the interim executive director for a time and is getting everything in good working order in terms of the internal policies and procedures. And then we've got a new executive director, Dan Gibson, starting on October 14th. Looking forward to his appearance at Visit McMinnville. And then with the library director hat on, something that I haven't mentioned before at this meeting, we do a teen game night the first Friday and fourth Friday of every month, and we have added Dungeons and Dragons to that, and that's been extremely popular.
Councilor Gary would like to know if adults are allowed to join.
Yes. We do need volunteers. Councilor Gary.
I have a wizard prepared.
Let's see. The other thing, as promised, every time that I'm here, I will bring something from the Library of Things. Also, just so you know, if you have any suggestions, there is a survey on the library homepage that you can make suggestions to the Library of Things. I added a jewelry cleaner today as a suggestion. Anyway.
Rock tumbler.
Something, okay.
To take the survey, I know.
Okay, rock tumbler, noted.
Okay, rock tumbler.
But this is a identifier lyric, and it has over 100 bird sounds.
Yellow finch. No, I don't know.
I think that was a ruby-throated hummingbird.
Was that an early gift from Dan Gibson?
What's that?
Was that an early gift from Dan?
Oh, no, but you're right. He's going to bring birds to McMinnville. Not that we don't already have birds, but more bird things. Birders. That's what he's bringing to McMinnville. Birders. One more?
One more.
That's a sweet one. That was the Eastern Towhee.
Thank you so much. Community Development Director Richards.
In the future, I'm going to sit next to you on the other side. Hard to follow someone who's got great gadgets.
You can go to the library and check something out.
Yeah, that's what I'll do, yes. I wanted to share with you, I sit on a couple of boards representing the city of McMinnville. One of the boards is the McMinnville Economic Development Partnership. We are having our annual meeting as a breakfast on October 2nd from 7:30 to 10:30 at the Bindery Event Space. That is where we talk about our annual accomplishments and also give out awards. So if anyone's interested in attending that, please let me know. I also sit on the board of the McMinnville Downtown Association representing the city of McMinnville, and we are going to be undergoing our state assessment that we do every couple of years next week. There's a city representatives group that they're going to be talking to in terms of the city's relationship with the Downtown Association and the downtown as a district, so I think some of you have been invited to that as well. And then we also have an opening on the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee that just became open, and we'll be advertising that here in the next week or two, and we'll be soliciting applications for that for anyone who's interested.
Thank you, Public Works Director Hunsaker.
First, I'd like to agree that even wastewater can be beautiful with the right lighting. And then did a little bit of quick research. There are 2 curb cuts on Yon Ranch Drive that are connected to access points for the park. I can work with the Parks and Rec Director to see about the development of the east side of J. Pearson, to see if that's something we need to try to fit in on this construction. But constructing the normal street section wouldn't preclude us from making those improvements later as part of the further development of the J. Pearson Park.
Can you clarify what you mean? You mean take out the work that was done and replace it with?
Yes, and you would be able to, since it's not a full curbless street, you would be able to do a curb cut and put an access path there. Right now, I don't know the timing of the full development of the east side of J. Pearson, so not putting, yes, that's essentially what I'm trying to say.
I'll have more questions, but perhaps we can do it later.
Okay, thank you. IT Director Scott Burke.
Just to say that I greatly appreciate our city recorder's office, Claudia and Daniel, because they make this look easy every meeting. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you. And HR Director Hedges.
I just have to say to Jenny, your gadget sounds like a nightmare to me because I am scared of birds. So happy to leave that in your library of things. For council tonight, I just want to report that we are starting the interview process for the police chief position.
Excellent. Thank you. Director Hedges would like you to bring the rock tumbler next time. We are now going to consider resolution number 2024-52, a resolution appointing volunteers to the Planning Commission and Historic Landmarks Commission, which is the only item on our consent agenda. So instead of presenting it as a consent agenda, we're just going to consider that resolution. And I know we have some of those volunteers here as well, so I'd like to take a vote on the resolution, and then, assuming an appointment, take a moment to meet those new committee members. So may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Menke and a second from Council President. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed say nay. And the resolution passes unanimously. So start online, and Mr. Kaiser, or did he leave?
He's
Oh, you stepped in person. Great. Do you both want to come up and introduce yourself? Diana, do you want to come up as well? And yeah, why not?
Hello. Daniel
Hello.
Kaiser.
From Europe,
I know, you're, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like, am I signing up for something else?
No. Which is, it's a little bit of my guffaw, but it's okay. We'll roll with it. Pretend I
Are
did
you
it
sure?
right.
I can go back.
No, it's okay. That would be worse. Mr. Kaiser.
Hello, Daniel Kaiser. I'm very happy to be joining the Historic Landmarks Committee, being able to serve the town I love and share my expertise through being a licensed architect.
Thank you so much.
My name is Diana Riggs. I am being recommended for MURAC tonight. I don't know. Did that pass?
It passed.
Oh, it passed. Okay.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited to get more involved on city committees.
Great. Thank you. Well, we greatly appreciate both of your service, and thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to your continued input and involvement with the city of McMinnville.
Hey. Excited to learn the process better so that I understand when I've been voted in.
Okay, we will now consider resolution number 2024-50, resolution adopting findings and exempting from public bidding requirements city's contractual portion of the construction of Meadows Drive along the eastern edge of J. Pearson Park. I would again call on Jeff Hunsaker, our Public Works Director, to present.
No additional comments from me.
Okay.
I have one additional question.
Okay.
Back to the curb cuts, is that not something we can include in this design if Parks Director Muir says she would like to have them?
We could get it in there.
Okay.
I'll make that promise.
We're just going to pause and wait for Councilor Geary for 1 second. Yeah, we're at council discussion. I know, but he specifically said, we're at council discussion. Do you have any things you'd like to discuss or more? You said you had more.
Oh, yeah, I guess follow up on Director Hunsaker's comments about the you will be able to talk to the constructor of the sidewalk to see if they would be willing to put in mirroring disability access curbless portions.
Yes, and Director Richards has informed me that there was a condition of development for an access connection as part of their work, so we'll make sure that it matches the Yon Ranch connection.
So not only to put in mirroring curbless accessible access points, but connecting that via sidewalk to the BPA? Is that what you're saying? To the BPA trail, which would then connect to J. Pearson? Maybe
Not sure how
took that too far.
they're required to go.
Yeah, so not through the city-owned property.
Okay.
The subdivision itself has a requirement for an access sidewalk.
Okay. To the city's parcel. And I was looking at that map that was included in the packet, and it seems to me we own, again, it's got a Sharpie and a hand-drawn property is here, which is never a great way to look at a deed, but it looks to me that it's on the east side of Meadows is where our property starts. And J. Pearson Park is to the west of Meadows.
So essentially the property line's right down the center line of where Meadows is going to go. It's the way it
Okay.
is. So half is on city property, half is on this developer's property.
Half of Meadows is on the city's property, half
they will
of Meadows
both
is
have to
on the
be-
developer's property.
Correct, and they'll both have to be dedicated as right-of-way as part of this process.
And I'm trying to balance that with what Director Richards just said about putting access to the city's property line.
And I can send out the subdivision decision to you, but the planning commission, when they were going through the process of approving the plan development, they wanted to make sure that the people living in the subdivision had access to J. Pearson Park. So there's an access sidewalk that goes through the subdivision, it must go to Meadows Drive if that's where the boundary line is for the city-owned property, and then further.
So
I don't have my mic on for any of that.
So what I think I heard you say is, in the actual development that is east of Meadows Road, which is what we're talking about here, in the development, housing development, there will be a path, accessible path, that gets people to Meadows to then get people to J. Pearson Park,
Yeah.
which is starting at Meadows.
Right, and then,
Okay.
and then there was intended to be a discussion with the Parks Department when they're ready to do so, to identify where the access would occur from Meadows to the park, and so that we can connect those two.
With mirroring accessible curbless sections. Yes. I am satiated.
It's a great place to be. Additional council discussion. Not hearing any. I would ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2024-50.
Moved.
Second, okay.
I have a motion from Counselor Geary, a second from Counselor Peralta. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. And the resolution has passed unanimously. I guess, Counselor Chenoweth, did you
I
vote?
said aye.
You said aye. Wonderful, thank you. We'll now consider resolution number 2024-53, a resolution authorizing Heather Richards to sign a grant agreement with the state of Oregon through, should it not say Community Development Director? Does it call out by name quite specifically? A resolution to sign a grant agreement with the state of Oregon through the Oregon Business Development Department on behalf of the city for $195,094 to be distributed to MV Advancements as a subrecipient to help pay for the water, stormwater, and sewer infrastructure costs of their future affordable housing project. And I would call on Community Development Director Richards to present.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and councilors. I also wanted to introduce, we have Kathy Schlattfelt, I hope I said that right, the Executive Director of NV Advancements, and Luann Anderson, who is a Secretary and Board Member for NV Advancements, with me as well. So this is a resolution to authorize myself, Heather Richards, to sign this grant agreement with the state for $195,094 to be dispersed to MV Advancements. It's for storm, water, sewer, and water infrastructure to support 24 units of housing, low-income housing for seniors and people living with disabilities. It's part of the efforts that we did last year in terms of working with Representative Elmer and the state legislature to identify housing projects that needed stopgap funding for infrastructure and getting direct allocations for them. And the direct allocation is the grant piece that we're talking about tonight. MV Advancements was part of those discussions. And their project got placed into Senate Bill 5130 or 1530 and got the direct allocation. It does need to come to the city from Business Oregon, and then the MV Advancements will be a sub-recipient of the city. We've been working with the staff at MV Advancements on putting together the contract itself and the project information form, and so they've reviewed it, the city has reviewed it, and we'll move forward with a development agreement to ensure that we pass that through to them. But they've been working diligently on this project. It's gone through our process at the city already in terms of land use. They've pulled their building permits and I believe are under construction. Close. Okay, well, apparently. Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot about that. There were a few emails last week going, okay. So anyways, we're close to construction and we're excited to get these funds deployed and build this needed housing. The housing is the second part of a two-phase project, but the infrastructure is being constructed underneath the first phase. And so we worked with the state to identify that this infrastructure would serve housing, but it needs to be installed now so that we're not pulling up a parking lot in the future to install it.
Great. Thank you so much. Any council discussion? I'm going to provide an opportunity. Yes.
You can go ahead, Mayor. I just had a brief comment.
I just skipped over. I was going to give anybody an opportunity to recuse themselves if they wanted to.
That's not what I'm going to do.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and open that up for 1 second. Does any counselor have a conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest that they would like to recuse themselves from the decision?
I'm a board member and a finance committee member for MVA, and I'm really looking forward to the impact this money could make, but I'm going to recuse myself.
Thank you so much. We will now go into council discussion. Councilor Peralta.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge that the city received, I believe, $2.2 million between this and the $2 million that was received for the pump improvements. That is, I think, about 3% of the total amount of state revenues that were allocated in total to these kinds of projects for any city around the state. our population is 0.8% of the state of Oregon, so we hit well above our weight in terms of bringing in funds to move affordable housing forward. And I just want to acknowledge the work of both the mayor and the lobbyist who did the work on our behalf, as well as Representative Elmer for getting these projects, and also to MV Advancements on this particular project for prioritizing affordable housing for the population and the community that you serve. So thank you.
I'll have to add on to that, then the tremendous work of our community development director, as well as members of her department, including the special projects coordinator. There's been a very large collaborative effort on all of these projects. So thank you for your work on that. Additional comments or questions? Not hearing any, I would ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2024-53.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Peralta and a second from Councilor Menke. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay.
Aye, and that's an aye.
Thank you. And the resolution passes unanimously. We're now
If I
going to,
may, can I ask if Kathy or Luann had any, did you guys want to make any comments?
No, just thank you. I mean, I think that kind words, Councilmember Peralta, that you had, Heather has done such a great job working with us, and I know it's been a long journey because we started this probably in March or April. And I also, Biz Oregon has been great to work with as well. So again, it's been a very collaborative effort, and we very much appreciate this because it will set us up for that phase 2 that is super important to so many community members here in McMinnville. So thank you.
well, thank you, and thank you for being here this evening as well. And congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll now consider the first reading with a possible second reading of ordinance number 5148. Does any member of the council need to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest or recuse themselves regarding this ordinance? We'll now consider the matter of ordinance number 5148. Does any counselor object to having the ordinance read by title only? Will the city attorney, David Leitenberg, please read the ordinance by title only?
This is the first reading of ordinance number 5148, an ordinance amending the November 2023 McMinnville Urbanization Report and the November 23 McMinnville Economic Opportunities Analysis in response to Remand Order 001943 from the Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD.
Thank you. And I would call again on our Community Development Director, Heather Richards, to present.
Okay, so since it's 50 degrees in here, and we have a rolling bet to when the meeting is going to end, I wanted to give a brief presentation on what this ordinance is and what it does, and then be available for questions. But we're looking at ordinance number 5148. So what that does tonight is it amends the November 2023 Economic Opportunities Analysis and the November 2023 Urbanization Report that the city adopted by ordinance number 5141. We adopted that in February of 2024. It amends it by adding 76 acres of undeveloped parkland to the existing parkland inventory, and we carry that parkland inventory in our Appendix E of the Economic Opportunity Analysis. This is in response to a remand that was in the DLCD Director's Decision Order 001943. So specifically, the ordinance adopts the amended, we're now calling it the amended September 2024 EOA as an element to the comp plan, replacing the November 2023 document. It also adopts the amended September 2024 Urbanization Report, replacing the November 2023 document. And just to note, that is not as part of our comp plan. It's just it's a separate adoption. The urbanization report is a summary of the needs analysis that you find in the economic opportunity analysis and in the housing needs analysis, and it's intended to be a document to make that work more understandable to the general public in terms of the outcomes. So it was one of our efforts at community engagement. And then the ordinance adopts amended findings for these documents. So this is a significant change. It adds 76 acres of undeveloped land to the existing parks land inventory, which then changes the public and institutional land need analysis from a deficit of 32 acres in the 2021 to 2041 planning horizon to a 44-acre surplus. And so if you look at this exhibit where it says replace the current exhibit, this is in Appendix E of the EOA. This is where we identified the need for public and institutional land in a variety of different categories. For parks, we identified a need through 2041, initially in the EOA of 392 acres. If we add 76 acres to the existing land inventory, that means we're subtracting it from the need. So that then reduces that need to 316 acres. And ironically, we brought in a similar amount of acreage, 315.4 acres, with our UGB expansion in 2020 for the 2003 to 2023 planning horizon. So that then sort of makes that a net zero affair in terms of needed parkland moving forward, which then changes our numbers for the from a deficit to a surplus in terms of the public and institutional land need. And so when we go into the land use efficiencies work, we will then look at how to assign that surplus of public and institutional land need to where we're showing other needs, which was both in housing and commercial and industrial land. So our overall deficit now changes from a deficit of 422 acres with the adoption of the ordinance 5141 in November 2023 to an overall deficit of 346 acres with the adoption of this ordinance based on repositioning that surplus land into other land need categories. So how did we get here? The city approved ordinance number 5141 on February 27th, 2024. We sent it to the DLCD director. So what we do is then send that to the Department of Land Conservation and Development, our state planning agency. They then review it and approve it or remand it or deny it. Or they can send it to the Land Conservation and Development Commission if they feel that they don't want to make a decision on it. But they're the decision-making body at the state for the sort of first look at it. We sent it to them on March 5th of 2024. They then requested an itemized public record, which we put together for them both May 3rd and May 15th, and that equated to about 5,000 pages of public record. Then after the public record was established, that provided the opportunity for people who had standing during the local process, so people who participated in the local process, to file objections with the Department of Land Conservation and Development, which I call DLCD. So 2 were filed on May 23rd. They had to be filed within 21 days of notice, and so 2 were filed on May 23rd, 2024. One from the Friends of Yamhill County and Thousand Friends of Oregon as a combined objection filing, and one from Mark Davis. The city then had the opportunity to respond to the objections. The DLCD director needed to issue a decision within a specific time frame, but there was enough time for the city to respond to the objections. The state reached out to us to do so. So we submitted our response on July 15th, 18th, and the 23rd of 2024. The objections and the responses are not in your packet, but they are on our project website if you're interested in seeing those. The DLCD director then issued a decision on our submittal, which was the housing needs analysis and the economic opportunity analysis, on August 1. So the objections that were filed, the Friends, I have them capitalized in Friends, and that's representing the 2 organizations, the Friends of Yamhill County and Thousand Friends of Oregon. They filed 10 objections. There were 2 objections relative to the housing needs analysis, 4 objections relative to the economic opportunity analysis, so for industrial and commercial land need, and then 1 objection with a couple of subparts for the parks land need, which is actually in an appendix of the economic opportunity analysis, and then an objection to the buildable lands inventory and an objection about our intention to do an urban reserve work, and then an objection for the McMinnville urbanization report. And then Mark Davis filed 2 objections. Both of them were relative to the parks land need. Both Friends and Mark Davis both had objections in there relative to the existing inventory of parkland that the city holds for our parks department, for our parks program. So the director reviewed all of those objections and then issued their decision, Order 001943, and they concluded that all the analysis complies with the state regulatory framework except for the land need methodology for park land and the existing parks and recreation buildable lands inventory, which they remanded back to us. So they ruled affirmatively on all the objections except for the one about the existing parkland inventory and the number of acres represented in that. And then they remanded it back to us to correct. So where this comes from is in October 2019, the city put together a McMinnville Park System table of park acreage. And they handed it out at one of the Project Advisory Committee meetings. This was the Project Advisory Committee meeting that was in the discussion of public and institutional land need. The table isn't perfect. At a Project Advisory Committee meetings, they're not, the information we're handing out is not usually perfect. We're vetting it. We're going through a process of review. There's errors in the classification of parks on this table. It was put together by our GIS program. And then there's also remnant parcels that are included in this table under the second half of the table in open space and undeveloped acreage. It is entitled, though, open space and undeveloped, and then it's entitled as a total undeveloped park lands, which equates to 76 acres. So we had some decisions to make, which was, do we revisit this inventory? Do we go back into those 76 acres and all the different items identified there? There's a lot of remnant property that's in there that's remnant property from public improvement projects that aren't intended for parks development. But there's also some other properties in there that are undeveloped parcels that could potentially be parks. So we could go back in there and fix the inventory. We could do it utilizing the new parks plan inventory, but what that would do is introduce new record into the project, and that new record could then go through the challenge process again. And I'm going to walk you through, we met internally as a team and decided that actually what we need to be doing right now is focusing on getting through this process in an expeditious manner so we can get to the land use efficiencies discussion, so we can conclude that process so that we can meet our sequential UGB work plan and also try to utilize grants that we have to do this work. The time frame that it takes in terms of the objections and the response to the objections and the challenges and the appeals delays our effort in going into the next step. Delaying our effort in going to the next step puts us in a position where we're losing grant funds because we're in a biennium grant program, and also puts us in a position of delaying the work in terms of being able to meet the performance metrics in our approved sequential UGB work plan. So looking at that, there will be cost to the city if we decide to either enter new record inventory into this or appeal the decision of the director. We had the opportunity to appeal the decision of the director to the LCDC. The cost to the city would be both money and time. And so the internal team that met decided that that cost wasn't worth it. Because we have just recently gone through a policy change relative to our park land and our level of service in terms of how much park land we will be programming for our future community, where we've reduced our parkland level of service by 30%. So the resolution that you adopted in June of 2024, resolution number 2024-38, has a level of service in it that reduces the existing level of service that this process was built on, which was 14 acres per 1,000 capita, to approximately 10 acres per 1,000 capita. So by adding the 76 acres to the existing parkland inventory, which then gets us to a net zero in terms of new land need beyond what we just brought into the UGB expansion areas, we felt that the interest in terms of time and trying to retain the grant funds was a better decision for the city. The sequential UGB work plan that we're under right now, we need to get our land use efficiencies work done and our UGB alternatives analysis work done by March 1 of 2026. We currently have a grant for $150,000 to do this work. We're now delayed about 6 months in terms of moving that forward because we can't move into the next step of this work. This is task 2 of a 2-task work plan until we get task 1 resolved, and task 1 is what's being challenged. So we already have learned that we have lost $95,000 of the $150,000 grant funds because of the biennium that we're in, and those funds will no longer be available at the end as of July 1. So we're interested in moving forward with the land use efficiencies as soon as we can. With the reduced parkland policy that was recently adopted, we feel we can, we'll be converting parkland into housing anyways in the UGB expansion areas, and do not feel that this action is really going to be unnecessarily negatively impactful in the future. I will tell you that the people who had standing in the process of Friends of Yamhill County, 1,000 Friends of Oregon, and Mark Davis have the opportunity to appeal the director's decision to the Land Conservation and Development Commission. They are, if you want to think of it, the statewide planning commission for the state. Both parties have done so, so they have appealed the director's decision. Friends has submitted 6 bases of appeal, focused on the economic opportunity analysis, focused on the parkland inventory again, and parkland need, the billable lands inventory, and the urban reserve intention of the city. And then Mark Davis has submitted appeal. Both of his appeals are basis on the parks program itself. These appeals are not relative to the director's decision to remand the 76 acres back to the city. These appeals are other objections that they had that they wanted to move forward to the LCDC. So that public hearing is currently scheduled for October 25th in Salem. But what that does is, again, we are not able to start the next step of the work until this step of the work is resolved. So the fiscal impact for this is, I'm trying to now calculate the consultant expenses and the in-kind staff report as we go through these processes so that we have an understanding of the cost to do this. And so I've provided that to you in your staff report, and we'll continue to provide this for the different work that we do for you. And then the grant impact that I just described to you, we have already had the discussion with the state about the $95,000, and in December we'll be visiting about the remaining $55,000 to see if we still have time to do the work associated with that. We will apply for another grant in the next biennium to see if we can get funds to replace the funds that we're losing in this grant round. So are there any questions?
Thank you. Questions? No? I would then ask for a motion to accept the first reading of ordinance number 5148 and possibly pass to a second reading.
Mayor?
Did you have a question, or are you making a motion, Counselor?
No, I did have a question. I'm sorry.
I'm so
didn't
sorry.
Quick enough to hit it during the question point. So, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. You said that there's already appeal in place to the director's decision, Heather. Is there, with what we're doing with this ordinance, is this also appealable?
Bill Kabizman is on the line, and Bill, actually, I'm going to defer this to you because I'm going to tell you a little secret. I've never had anything appealed to LCDC in my 25-year career.
Yes, Commissioner Chenoweth. The simple answer is probably, but unlikely. And the reason I'd say that is the idea of the law of the case. This would be considered all one proceeding. And to the extent they could have raised it in the first first go round, they would be prevented from raising it in the second. And given the targeted focus of the change, it's likely that what we're doing is exactly what they asked to have happened. So it's extremely unlikely that they would appeal this. This is sort of setting aside the parts that they did appeal that are before LCDC and hopefully LCDC agrees with DLCD and we can move forward. But yeah, this action is unlikely to be appealed in my based on my experience.
And then is there anything, I mean, I think I already know the answer to this question, but we lose money as a result of these appeals that we as a community really don't want to be without. Is there any way to, I know in regular legal framework, you have the opportunity to quote unquote go after costs. Is there any way to do that in these kinds of situations?
I haven't looked specifically at this question. What I can tell you is that the Oregon land use system is set up to balance, the idea of getting things done quickly with making sure that there's sufficient public input. And that in most cases, it seems very unlikely that we could go after appellants in this situation. There are situations where the state statutes does allow for the award of attorney's fees or other types of things. This just isn't one of those. I can dig deeper if that's something you'd want to look at, but I just don't think it's realistic. Okay,
no, that's good. I feel like there should be, right now it's kind of open-ended. They can appeal till the end of the moon. So it'd be nice if there was some penalty for ongoing appeals that are costing cities monies that they desperately need. But if it's not feasible or easily feasible, I get it. Thank you. Those are all my questions, Mayor.
Thank you. I would now entertain that motion to pass ordinance number 5148.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Menke, a second from Council President Garvin. All those, the motion has passed to, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say, thank you. And those opposed say nay. And the motion has passed to a second reading. And so I would ask our city attorney to read the ordinance again by title only.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 5148, an ordinance amending the November 2023 McMinnville Urbanization Report and the November 23 McMinnville Economic Opportunities Analysis in response to remand order 001943 from the Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD.
Thank you. I would now ask for a motion to adopt ordinance number 5148.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilor Menke.
Second.
And a second from Council President Garvin. All those, and would the city attorney please poll the council?
Councilor Geary.
Aye.
Councilor Menke.
Aye.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Aye.
Councilor Peralta.
Aye.
Councilor Payne. Council President Garvin.
Aye.
And ordinance number 5148 is adopted unanimously. I will now adjourn this city council meeting at 8:46 p.m. And do we want to break before we call the urban renewal to order? No. Okay, and at 8:47, I will now call to order the McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency meeting of September 24th, 2024. We have a consent agenda this evening. Do I have, and the consent agenda is to correct my guffaw from earlier when we were appointing people to the Planning Commission and Historic Landmarks Committee, and I asked the person that we're asking for an appointment to the McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency to come to the table. So thank you for staying, and I'm sorry I made you wait through a third meeting. But now that you have had an opportunity to meet Ms. Riggs, I would ask for a motion to approve resolution. I have a motion to approve resolution number 2024-05 by Councilor Payne and a second by Council President Garvin. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say nay. Passes unanimously. You are now appointed to the McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency. Thank you for your service. And meeting is adjourned at 8:48 p.m. Okay, who won the bet?